Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. I will start the introductions for our topic, which is prohibitions of Riba, Gharar, and Maisir. Islam regulates all aspects of human life, not only the aspect of worships, but also the aspect of muamalah, especially Islamic economics. The Quran clearly states the perfections of Islam in many verses. One of the teachings of Islam that governs human life is the economic aspect. These Islamic teachings on economics pretty much show that the attentions of Islam in economics affair is enormous. The longer verse in the Quran actually contains economic problem, not just matter of worships or belief. The longest verse is verse 282 of Surah Al-Baqarah, which according to Ibn Arabi contains 52 law or economics problem. Since the time of Rasulullah SAW, all forms of uncertainty trade have been prohibited. Related to the amounts that is not specifically determined on the goods to be exchanged or sent. Even perfected in the heyday of Islam, which is Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbasiyah, whereas the contributions of Islam is to identify business practice that have been much more be in accordance with Islam. In addition to codifying, systematizing, and formulating business and financial practice according to legal standards based on Islamic law, Al-Quran and Sunnah. The prohibitions of Riba, Gharar, and Maisir is increasingly relevant for this modern era because this modern era contains many attempts to transfer risk, which is danger, to others in conventional insurance, capital market, and various financial transactions that contain elements of gambling. Where every endeavor is undertaken, there is definitely a risk and it cannot be avoided. This system was abolished by Islam so that the transaction process is well preserved and ukhuwah is preserved and does not cause hospitality to those who transact in the financial market.
Riba is derived from the derivative verb ribawa, means to increase, to expand, to ascend, to conquer, to become greater than. From a Shariah's perspective, it might be construed as excessive remunerations. Alternatively, in incorrect returns on a loan, agreement, business loan, or sales. Riba is sometimes translated into English as riba or interest, although it has a broader connotations in Sharia. It might be construed as excessive remunerations or an unsuitable return on a loan or sales. Additionally, the Sharia has specified and elucidated upon many sorts of rapacious practice along with their illegality. For illustrations, the Prophet of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala criticized people who accepted riba, paid it, documented, and also had a solid evidence to it, claiming they are all like that. If the object trade is already in general different, then action is not limited as long as it is done in hand-to-hand transaction. Riba or interest in the contemporary world is plainly condemned in Al-Quran and Prophet's conduct subhanahu wa ta'ala as demonstrated by the preceding explanations. Riba could be achieved at the expense of a debt or by an auto loan, a housing loan, a term loan or overdraft, a contract loan, or a lending institutions. Riba can also be incurred as a result of a saving or fixed deposit account, and riba can also be incurred as a result of credit card. Riba is frequently connected with a modern finance and commerce. In riba, there are two types. Firstly, riba al-nasi'ah, riba in a loan contract. Finally, the idea of riba is determined by Sharia-compliant financial institution. Some feels that any interest is riba, while others say it is only illegal if it is devious or done maliciously in order to harm someone. The majority of Islamic financial lessors think that riba can be charged up to the current value of inflation in the nations where the loan is concluded. This is thought because the individual seeking a loan is expected to return the time worth of the money received. This does not allow to the lessor to make a lot of money, but is an act of good faith. Riba al-nasi'ah is essentially interest paid on money borrowed to someone. For example, a borrows a RM5K loan he cannot pay in time, must pay an additional amount, for example RM100 to receive a credit extension. Second example is current debt is RM2100 if continuously fails to pay and asks for postmortem. Last example is debt will increase to RM3200, double the additional amount. Next, riba al-fard, riba in sales or exchange contract. Taking a superior object of the same types of good exchange for more of the same kinds of goods of worse quality. For example, dates of superior quality for dates of poorer quality in a large quantities. Finally, it is illegal to trade an unequal amount of commodities or objects of varying quality during a goods exchange or agreement. This implies that if the loan or buyer wishes to offer the seller something more, even if it's of lower quality, it is illegal, because the majority of these transactions are considered barter. Many people assume that this practice is legitimate. The extra would be riba if two persons exchange the same commodity in uneven quantities, because it is not stated clearly in the Quran. This type of riba is also known as riba al-hadith in academic literature. The Prophet ﷺ has classified it as a riba in a following hadith. Gold for gold, silver for silver, worth for worth, barley for barley, dates for dates, salt for salt, must be equals on the both sides and hand to hand. Whoever pay more or demands more on either side indulge in riba. Sahih Muslim. There are two key factors that constitute a sales as bearing riba according to this hadith. Delay in times of deferments of the exchange of commodity. Second, difference in quality in exchange of similar commodities. In brief, while trading two similar commodities, the two rules given below must be strictly followed, otherwise there is riba in the agreement.
Next is the definitions of Gharar. The concept of Gharar is quite broad and includes any elements of absolute uncertainty that is considered an unfair practice in a contract or business transactions. There are lots of specific terms and concepts that we need to know and understand in the world of Islamic finance. Whether is it a borrower or lender, you need to understand and know Islamic finance because it is absolutely important. When it comes to Gharar in Islamic finance, you need to be aware of it because it refers to risky or dangerous sales. Moreover, Gharar in Islam refers to any transactions of problem object whose existence or descriptions is not certain due to lack of knowledge and information about the final outcome of the contract or the nature and quality of the object of the contract. Like we can see the evidence and explanations in the Quran that have already been told to us are: do not consume your property wrongfully, nor use it to bribe, judge, intending sinfully and knowingly to consume parts of others people's property. And another evidence is: you believe, do not wrongfully consume each other's wealth, but trade by mutual consent. Do not kill each other, for God is merciful to you. We will go through two types of Gharar. There is divided by two categories, which is Gharar Fahish and Gharar Yasir. Every entrepreneur or businessman is willing to take the risk of dealing with an unknown person, and Gharar cannot be avoided completely. Firstly, we will go to Gharar Fahish, which is called a real or a major Gharar, and it's not acceptable due to great uncertainty. The contract is prohibited under Sharia law if the presence of excessive Gharar. The major Gharar arises when the product does not exist and the product cannot be delivered. Excessive Gharar may represent a lack of information or ignoring a price of goods, the unit of money in which the price to be paid. For these prohibitions, there is a general agreement. Here I will tell you the example. For the first one, selling a mysterious box that the customer doesn't know what is inside. Second is selling of the birds in the sky. Third is selling of fruits or milk in the udder without measurement. Second is Gharar Yasir. This is a small amounts of Gharar that are halal are called Gharar Yasir. Almost all contract can be found in this Gharar. Therefore, Gharar Yasir is allowed in business transactions. For example, a hotel charges its customer a similar price as another customer. Second is buying a pen in a box. Third is buying a natural product without removing the skin inside. I will tell you the Gharar and risk. There is no difference between the fraud that is prohibited in business transactions where the object is not known and the risk involved in the transactions of Gharar, which is prohibited in Sharia. In the prohibitions of Sharia, there is some reason for the Gharar to the contracting party. This is more related to fraud when a sales amounts of appropriating the property of others through the sales of unavailable goods. And the contract may lead to disputes and disagreements between the contracting parties. In economics, some scholars use the terms uncertainty. The probability of an event can be measured, which is described risk situations. Therefore, this risk can be evaluated hypothetically. People always ask, why is Gharar bad? This is explanations of this. Gharar is dealing with harm to certainty and openness in business. The prohibitions of Gharar protects companies from transactions that involve great uncertainty or deceptions, as they may lead to unfairness and involve asymmetric risk-taking. This is leading to an illiberal loss or gains at the expenses of the others. It also ensures genuine consent in transactions, as genuine consent can only be achieved through transparency. Prohibiting Gharar protects against unexpected losses, disagreements, misunderstandings, and mistrust, thus promoting satisfactions in business transactions.
Let's continue with Maisir. Maisir, which comes from the Arabic word al-yasa, literally means easily available wealth or game of chance, and refers to acquiring wealth by chance, whether or not it deprives others of their rights or causes harm to others, or obtaining something quickly and without effort, or receiving benefits without working. Gambling is defined in Islamic finance as any transaction between two parties to obtain ownership of a certain asset or service that helps one party while damaging others by linking a particular transaction with an act or event that benefit one party while harming others. In Islamic, gambling is severely banned, include bets, lotteries, and other types of gaming. Any game with betting components, which is assets, is which the winner obtains the loser's property is considered gambling. To be considered gambling, at the very least 3 conditions must be met. The first one is a betting subject or asset exists on both sides of the gambler. Secondly, the game was used to determine who was the winner and who was the loser. And lastly, the winner will receive the bet property, whether part or whole, while the loser will forfeit his bet property. Next, prohibition Maisir in Al-Quran. Gambling is part of guilty possession by vanities, and it is absolutely forbidden by the Quran. It distracts people from remembering Allah, and the sin is larger than the reward. Al-Baqarah 219. Gambling is in general a cause of injustice that depletes productive resources. This occurs when the winner may only profit if the other side loses, infringing of other people's right, and the gambler will forget to remember Allah and pray. Next, prohibition Maisir in Hadith. Anyone who says to his friend, "Come here, I'll conduct Qimar," kind of gambling with him, should give sadaqah. The hadith of Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu above shows that Qimar or gambling is illegitimate and punishes people who indulge in it with sadaqah and kafarah. Some Islamic scholars feel that Qimar is the same as gambling, while others argue that Qimar can only be found in mu'amalah as a game and bet. Lastly, the reason why Maisir is prohibited from an economic perspective. The first one is inequitable income distribution. In gambling, profit may only begin if one side wins or if the Riba principle is employed, which distributes risk from the strong to the weak. This approach is clearly unreasonable and inhibits entrepreneurial motivation, as income distribution should be based on the number of real firm activities or risk sharing among partners. Next, the distribution of economic resources is inefficient. Allocating economic resources to gambling activities may delay and perhaps chop the economy's value added, resulting in money being shifted from the productive to the non-productive societies.
Differences in the involvement of Riba, Gharar, Maisir between Islamic banking and conventional banking. Islamic banking. The facility provided by Islamic bank is called a financing facility, not loan. Type of loan that is permitted in Islamic transaction is only Qard Hasan, benevolent loan. As they are the entity that conducts commerce, banks must also make profit. Example of contract providing financing facility by Islamic bank: equity or partnership financing, musyakarah, mutanakisah, lease-based financing, ijarah tuma al-bay, aitab, sale-based financing, BBE. Totally prohibited elements of Gharar thus introduce a Sharia-compliant financing facility. It does not impose interest since the contract is not based on a loan and mostly on sale contract. The agreement specifies the financial agreement in detail. In the case of contract that offers financing through an Islamic bank, the amount that the client must pay is fixed and do not rely on any rate. When it comes to subscription and compensation, the element of ambiguity is removed in this sort of contract. Next, in the case of wadi'ah and it is given amount of riba, because sellers in wadi'ah are not entitled any advantage over the principal as mentioned in the hadith of riba. Some scholars allow Islamic bank to hold competition on the condition that the prize money is paid out of bank fund. Otherwise, it is an unfair conduct for saving account and bondholder to profit from commercial activity that has not begun. Next, conventional banking. Some academics differentiated between usury and riba on the same basis that former entails consumer loans whilst the latter involve productive loans. Interest. Extra charge imposed on a debtor who borrow money for productive purposes such as investment, industry and trade. Usury. Extra charge imposed on debtor who borrow money for consumption such as his own personal day-to-day needs. Gharar. Affect the validity of contract if it occurs in this area. Gharar in kind of type, attribute, quantity of the object. Gharar due to delivery time. Gharar due to deliver price. Mode of payment doubt over ability to deliver. Example, the majority of the time this is done using a traditional loan. Because it is an interest-bearing loan, the amount of payment given to the bank determined by the rate of interest set by the bank. Riba is a term that refers to any sort of interest-bearing loan. Whether the case may be, they are made for consumption or production. Due to the presence of riba, both riba and Maisir traditional price-carrying schemes are incompatible with Sharia principle. Although investor and depositor money is protected in price point program and saving account, the award are paid out in the income earned on the capital accumulated. Differences between riba, gharar, and maisir. Riba is a term that refers to any sort of interest-bearing loan. Whatever the case may be, they are made for consumption and production. Next, gharar is a key concept in Islamic finance and it used to assess the validity of a hazardous investment such as a short selling, gambling, sale of speculative product or asset or any transaction that isn't written in unambiguous words. Maisir, aka gambling, is a game to spend money and expect larger outcome was widespread practice in the pre-Islamic time of the Arabs. The Quran prohibited gambling alongside alcoholics in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, verses 219. Lastly, we got conclusion. Since Islamic finance sector has grown significantly over the last 2 decades, knowing Islamic finance concept has become extremely important. In example, Islamic banking has emerged as a valuable alternative to conventional banking in many Muslim and non-Muslim nations. Because this is a rule-based financial system, it is critical to understand the underlying rule and how they differ from others. According to the Prophet Muhammad's given writings and practices, the 3 most significant principles are riba, gharar, and maisir, and financial transaction must be devoid of these 3 factors or transaction would be void. Furthermore, literature reveals that they are supported in Islamic financial transaction by early Islamic jurists, academics, and modern researchers. In conclusion, we may say that Islamic financial transaction must be free from riba, gharar, and maisir, not only because of the unfairness in these processes, but also because of the unfairness in this method.